the event is to begin to look at different ways in which young people in Kenya, but in the wider sub-Saharan Africa can begin to start critically evaluating the information that bombard them online, both as consumers and producers. So we are looking at both sides of the supply chain. We are also in the process of designing a new project with the United Nations on this topic, covering 4 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, that is South Sudan, Kenya, Zimbabwe, and the DRC. So it was ideally a very good place to begin some discourse about the topic, and also make sure that we are at the center and front of it. I will just introduce the organization through showing short videos, and then I'll hand over to the moderator. Thank you very much, and without further ado, I now hand over to the moderator and welcome you pleasantly to the event. Let's have a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. As said before, my name is Pradesh Kabunga. I am currently working with the Youth Cafe, and it is with great pleasure that I am the moderator for this forum. Without taking much time, let me introduce our speakers. We have Steve Berger, who is the Vice President of Radio and Digital of WNI, Tri-State in the USA. We have Nelson Kwaje, who is the founder of WEB for All Limited, an ICT company that provides innovative ICT solutions with the aim of bridging the literacy gap in Africa and building sustainable ICT for good. And then we have Rachel Okwa. I had the pleasure to have a conversation with Rachel. She's quite an interesting person. She's currently the Learning and Communication Officer at Voluntary Service Overseas. Yes, so welcome, and please feel free, and thank you. Any introduction you'd like to make for yourselves?
I believe what you have given is sufficient for now, unless the audience has specific questions regarding what you do in
Okay. So I'd now like to welcome Nelson, who has a presentation. Yes, Nelson.
Okay, so I connected to the Is it a presentation or a...
I mean, sorry, Steve.
Steve, yeah.
My bad. I thought this was Nelson.
Yeah. I was like, what am I presenting?
While I'm in your country as a guest and not practicing my profession, which is a journalist in America, I found that in trying to talk about media literacy, it's very difficult for a journalist to do that. because our entire career is involving in verifying information and making sure that it's true. So we've always done that. So when in trying to understand better what the general public has issues with media literacy, it's difficult for me to understand it. That said, I do hope you have some questions after I make my presentation, because one thing I can offer that is perhaps unique in this room is that of any question you have about being an American journalist. So I do have a couple of thoughts, though, on media literacy that I was able to come up with. Is that going to show up over here? So the definitions of media literacy. The media from the Kenyan National Commission for UNESCO, and I realize that you may have seen some of these already, but bear with me for just a minute. Media literacy aims to empower citizens by providing them with the competencies and knowledge, skills and attitude necessary to engage with traditional media and new technologies. And then the Center for Media Literacy, which is an organization in the U.S. but has been doing this for a long time, I think as long as 30 years they've been working on media literacy. And it's the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, and create media in a variety of forms. So that is the basis that I go from. You can go to that. And then further, media literacy is a 21st century approach to education. It provides framework to access, analyze, evaluate, and create messages in a variety of forms, from print to video to the internet. And this is just really, to me, is the most insightful one. Media literacy builds an understanding of the role in media in society, as well as essential skills of inquiry and self-expression necessary for citizens of a democracy. And, well, go ahead and go to that. So that is some guidelines from others. These are my rules, and my rules come from not from studying media literacy in depth. These folks know far more about that than I do. But where mine comes from is more than 30 years in the media as a journalist. Okay, so if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If anything you see or read on social media or the internet just gives you pause, that should be enough that you would want to check on it, because it needs to be verified. Okay? Determine which media outlets are generally accepted as reputable sources for your area. And I would not be, I'd be, if someone has some ideas about for this area, what would be the reputable sources? In the United States, we would say that NPR, PBS, the New York Times, the Washington Post, outlets like that are generally accepted reputable sources, because they have checked all their facts at least three different ways in order to verify that what they're saying is the truth in their articles and on their airwaves. So that would be a generally accepted media source, reputable media source. So I don't know what if we could talk about for Kenya or for sub-Saharan Africa what those might be. Does anybody have any ideas?
The standard.
Standard?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have one. So you're going to have to do a little more work because, we'll get into that. Check your social media feed for verified personal sources who have either seen or experienced it firsthand. What I'm doing here is for people who are reading something that they see on the internet or social media. So and these are suggestions I have for how to determine whether it's actually true or not. So we said reputable sources, check for verified personal sources. Verified personal sources will be someone you know and trust who has either seen the thing that's being discussed or has experienced it firsthand. That's two ways. check government sources or well-known NGOs in the field. And I think for this area, the well-known NGOs would be a really good source, that they're going to be putting out information that has been verified and you can trust it. And then lastly, check education sources for background and context. For anything that I'm doing as a journalism project, I will have checked the educational sources for historical information on any topic. Whatever you're hearing, whatever you're seeing, I will have done that, because the context of anything you hear or see on the internet or on social media is paramount. If you don't understand the context that it was given in, you won't be able to tell if it's true. So please be sure and make sure that you understand that and check those other sources. When I produce a news story, I have at least 2 sources, and usually, hopefully 3, for every fact that is in that story. So again, I'm explaining this from the standpoint of a journalist because that's how I understand it. I don't just have a social media feed. I can tell you when I first saw Facebook and I first saw Twitter and I saw some of the things that were on there, I'm going, we would never do. I was shocked. I thought, people, why are you, I know that's not true. Why are you saying that? So, but it doesn't stop people from doing it. But for me, this is how I make sure that what I put out there is verified and is true. Okay, next slide. Then for sharing or redistributing, the point that I want to make here is that you have to be a responsible citizen. You are not being a responsible citizen if you share something that you know is not true. Because when you share it, the algorithm of that social media platform or that website will boost it, and it will be shared even more. So even if you make a sarcastic comment about it to a friend, you share it, you say, oh, geez, that doesn't make any sense, or that's really stupid, or don't they look funny, you are actually boosting it, and you're actually continuing to create a viral sensation that will continue to proliferate that misinformation that's going out. So please don't do that. Please do the work, do a little research, don't share, be a responsible citizen. That's what my message is. It's the same message in the United States as it is here. Quickly, so yeah, funny cat videos. Fine, go ahead and share funny cat videos without checking on them. Please, any news item or anything else, please check it. Okay. And I did have one example that I wanted to share, and this is a recent example, and that's why I was going to share it, because again, these folks know a lot more about this than I do. But it has to do with health information, false health information relating to the coronavirus, and this was put out last week by a source that I trust. So, in-depth analysis of rumors around the coronavirus and COVID-19 on Twitter, and talking about the application programming interface, or API. Although most of the social media platforms have cut off access to their API, Twitter has not. In fact, it still has a fair amount of access that you can get to it. So, next slide. Here is the information, and I can certainly make it available. You don't need to, or you can take a picture of it or look at it. Here's how you can get into Twitter's API and do research, not just for health information, but for any type of information, and find out the number of posts that are being done, where they're coming from, where they're being shared, and I think it would be a really good resource to determine whether something was true or not. Now, of course, as I said, that's only one source. We need 2 or 3. So, and then the resources, again, that's where I got all the information that I just gave you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes.
Maybe just a comment. I'm sorry. The comment is Kenyans have found a way of adopting into managing this media literacy, where Kenyans are very lie averse, so to speak. Like, you post something, you will find a way of verifying it from different groups. Let's say WhatsApp group. So they'll send to another group, they say, we have had this from this group, is this true? And then they'll say, no, that is not true, that is fake news, and that kind of a thing. But then they will also check with the main media sources in the country, which is NTV, Citizen TV, KTN, those are, and K24. Those are the main ones that they will check. If it's a major news, they will want to hear from them if actually the news is true or not. But that idea, that's what you brought in is a new thing where being responsible, we have been having this responsibility of sharing whatever we get without necessarily checking if it's true or not true. So I just wanted to give that feedback.
Without knowing what part of the Kenyan Constitution relates to this, I can tell you that in the United States, the First Amendment to the Constitution to our Constitution is the one that deals with freedom of the press and freedom of information. And our founding fathers made it the first one because they understand that it is the most important thing. If you don't have verifiable information, if you don't have a free flow of that verified information, you will not be successful. Eventually you will fail. And we constantly in our country have that struggle because there are always, it's not recent, it has, from the day that our Constitution was signed and drafted and signed, someone has been trying to put misinformation out in one way or another to the public. So it is important that you have a free press in order to verify those things and make sure that they're true. But what I'm saying is, with the social media platforms and the internet, the media cannot keep up with that. Every citizen has to be responsible and take part in that, and make sure that what they're sharing and what they're spreading is true. Because if it's not, you are responsible for what damage it does to your country.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Is there any other comments or questions from the audience? Okay, Mr. Barber. One of my questions is, you spoke of verification and trusted media outlets, but could you tell us what policies are there to combat fake news and misinformation, be it in the US or even it's something that could be related to Kenya? Yeah.
Was that for me?
Yes.
Go ahead, could you repeat? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were asking something.
No. You spoke of verification and trusted media outlets, but I'm asking if you could just give us anything on policies, any policies that are there to combat fake news and misinformation.
Well, the policy would be what I just was talking about, that you don't spread any information unless it has been verified by you or someone else that you trust and that you know is a trusted source. And you have at least two sources that are saying the same thing from different places around the issue, and hopefully three. So if that's the policy that we use whenever we're putting out any fact, to make sure that it is indeed true. And I will tell you, as a journalist, usually even sometimes three is not enough. The more controversial the fact is, the more sources you need to verify it. I can remember some more investigative type pieces that I have worked on in my career where some of the information was very controversial, and I was not happy that I knew it was the truth until I had 5 or 6 different sources that said the same thing, that indicated the same thing. So when you ask about what policies that would be, that's what I would point to.
And also, what are the dangers to the public for misinformation? What type of dangers do they put the audience or the receiver to? What are the dangers? Yes.
Well, my lovely wife Jerry in the back told me one just today. And this, I'm gonna ask her to back me up if I get anything wrong about this. It had to do with Netscape, right? Well, it was a source. It was Medscape.
It's a large health resource. They put out something on myths related to coronavirus.
And now you think about what you know about the coronavirus and how it is spread, okay? It is spread by contact or through the air if someone coughs or sneezes, correct? So this advice was that you should drink a bleach solution in order to stop the spread of the coronavirus. So somehow by putting bleach into your stomach, you're going to stop it. So that's obviously misinformation. That's clearly wrong. It doesn't have anything to do with what would be correct and true. So when you see that, I noticed there were some smiles in the audience. It's like, well, of course that's false. But somebody was putting it out, and that is the danger, because the danger is that someone is going to give that to a young child, that solution, and it could cause them harm. So yeah, it does have an impact. It matters if you spread misinformation.
Thank you very much. Could you appreciate Mr. Mario a bit? Now I'd like to invite Rachel to talk to us. You have the floor.
The panel was question and answer, so I don't know if we are...
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't want any type of introductory statement?
I feel like Stephen has given a very good background on media literacy, what it means to be media literate, and things you need to consider before you share any information. So I think that forms a good background for us to begin the discussion.
So the question is, it has been noted that vernacular media promotes cases of ethnic incitement and polarization, especially during the electioneering periods here in Kenya. How true is this, and is there any way this could be combated?
Yeah, thank you. Vernacular radio and now TV stations, when they came up, I think the main point was for access for those of us who say don't speak the national language, which is Swahili, and then English. So it was for purposes of connecting more with the community and ensuring that they are informed. But like we all say, or we all do, sometimes media takes advantage. It may not be intentional, because media is also owned by someone. Sometimes they want to drive the owner's agenda. Sometimes biases come to play, like I consider this politician my person as a journalist, the person who is conveying this message. I want them to promote this politician's agenda more than the other person's. So it is true that they took advantage of this fact that I speak, for instance, I speak a language called Luo. So sometimes you feel like somebody who doesn't speak Luo would not understand what I'm telling my people. And so they took advantage. It moved from let's inform people to it became very polarized, the information being conveyed. So it is true that vernacular radio stations moved far away from their key role. But constantly, the Media Council of Kenya has been very, very vigilant in doing media monitoring. So this has been combated by asking people to stay ethical as a journalist. And there is also a requirement that you have to be a trained journalist, even whether you are working for a local media station or you're working for a national media station. This has enabled journalists to now become more aware, become more media, savvy and literate, to then be sure to convey information that is true. Polarization, sometimes we don't intend it, like I mentioned, but we have to consider that there is illiterate people sometimes, or semi-literate people that rely on the information we give. Internet penetration in Kenya is at about 90%. But what we have to consider is the fact that there are people who can access Google, or they can access Facebook, but they really can't deconstruct messages. So it has been constantly important to consider your audience. Much as you are speaking about, let's say I'm speaking about the BBI, which is currently a very hot topic in Kenya, I need to tell people the truth as is. I need to consider that they rely on me almost 100%. So what I tell them is the gospel truth to them. So am I considering that they can deconstruct this message to a point where they analyze it and then they can consume it in a more, objective manner? So it used to be bad when it started in 2007, 2006. There are more vernacular radio stations now, but the regulations have put it in such a manner that you can't just speak and not suffer the consequences in case they find out that you are being, you're being wayward in terms of the information you are relaying. So.
Thank you. Second question is, the media constructs the message, but the consumer constructs the meaning. Please, could you elaborate on this statement?
Very true, and I'd love to use an example. There is a very interesting billboard currently, if I'm pronouncing it right. The rice called Rani. Is it Rani or Rani? There is billboards of a lady dancing and she's, for lack of a better word, wearing rice. Yeah, like it's rice all over the place. So this particular message, it brings different meanings to different people. I logged onto LinkedIn the other day, and the advertising agency that did this very nice piece of work, they put it out and they are like, we appreciate the feedback about how creative we are. But then someone in the comments was like, wow, why would I want to eat rice that is on someone's body? So you see, they got a very different meaning from it. The rest of us see that billboard and we want to stop and just, wow at the goodness that is that creativity. So this is what happens all the time. Yeah, when the media puts out a message, you have to consider various things. They have an audience, and most of the time, media is not the owner of this message. Yeah, the source is from a client. For instance, in the case of advertising, like in Rani Rice, Rani is the client here. So they have a target audience. It may be millions of us, if not all of us. Yeah, they have the message that they want to pass out, that this rice is the kind that doesn't, it's
not sticky.
Yeah, it's not sticky. So it's good rice. But we all have different ways of absorbing messages. Matching meaning to any message is the responsibility of you as the consumer. Not, like I put it, the media will put it out, but how you deconstruct it depends on a lot of things. Yeah, how I'll deconstruct a message will depend on my biases. I like Pishori rice, I don't like Rani, so maybe I'll go for a different type of rice. So by that virtue, I will hate on that rice because I don't like it. Yeah, my experiences, I may have bought Rani rice before, but because it was not what they're trying to portray on that billboard, I'll say, I'll give it a different meaning. Sometimes, because I don't know about Rani rice at all, and somebody else tells me that this rice is good, I may attach a good meaning to it. So meaning is based on very different things. It could be because of my experience that I designed that message. It may be because of somebody just informing me because I don't know that I attach meaning to it. So giving meaning to any message, much as we want for it as people who put up the message, who are the media, for people to receive this message in a manner that is universal, it is impossible because we are different culturally, we are different from the locations we come from. So this all play a part in us attaching meaning to any sort of message.
Thank you. I'll take a break from my questions and see if there are any questions from the audience for Rachel. Okay. So, Rachel, does the media catalyze the recent rise in hate crimes? and how free should speeches be in censorship? Is censorship important? Yeah.
Okay. I want to say yes and no. Media has moved away from just the traditional media. Now we don't just consume information from television and radio. Social media, I think, is actually a big source of information for most of us than the traditional media are. So while I want to say yes, because of the much access we have, like Steve has already alluded, that information on the the coronavirus, for instance, it's out there. I have Twitter. I can just come out and say, you know what, using hand sanitizer won't really help you because it's mostly for bacteria and not for viruses. And somebody who doesn't understand that information, and because coronavirus is such a hot topic right now, may believe it. So disseminating hate crimes has been very easy. It's very difficult for traditional media to do this for obvious reasons. They are heavily regulated. And most people watch this particular media. But social media, Kenyans who are here, I'm sure we have all experienced this. Somehow, some way, there is always hate crime somewhere. Yeah, hate messages on WhatsApp. Yeah, you shut down your WhatsApp, someone is on Telegram, the same information. You shut it down, you go to Instagram stories, it's there. So controlling it has been very difficult. I'd want to give an example of Uganda. When the issue of Bobi Wine and Museveni not being in good terms was very hot, you realize that the president of Uganda regulated heavily and said, you shut down this thing. Ethiopia does the same thing just to regulate the way information flows on social media, because it can go from 0 to 100 real fast. We are not at that level in Kenya yet, where the president of this country can just say, shut down WhatsApp, shut down Twitter for a while. There were rumors sometime last year that social media is about to be shut down so you people can stop, peddling lies. But it didn't get there because we are very free, we are very democratic, we are not in 1994 anymore. So that advancement has also inhibited the current government from, the lockdown. But media literacy, again, is very important at this juncture. And Youth Cafe, for instance, all these youth platforms that are represented here, this is where you come in, because you get access to information, you get access to, seated forums like this to know that how important media literacy is for you. Much as we all can access, I already said this, not all of us can design it in a way that it's effective. Not all of us can state that this information has come to me, but I'm not too sure. Yeah, it will come to me, I will run with it. By the time it gets to the 10th person, it's totally distorted. So responsible consumption of information, responsible sharing of information, that is where we come in as youth. But social media and hate crime, sort of synonymous, but there is something we can do. As Kenya, that is not heavily censored, or rather censored at all, how can we then decide as youth, as anybody consuming information, to be responsible about what we share, to be responsible about what we consume, counter-check whether it's correct before you then peddle it. And there is also a culture issue that will need to change, because we are all very quick we want to trend so bad. So information will get to me, I'll not take time to verify it, I'll share it with the next person who will also have this appetite to trend and then share it. Before we know it, it's wrong information and the whole country is consuming it. It leaves somebody else with the responsibility of correcting that wrong, and it's not right. Yeah. So when it comes to hate crime, I think social media is the biggest culprit. Traditional media, not so much.
So from what I have gathered, you are free to talk as you wish,
yes,
but you are also responsible for the information that you put out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll give a little example. There is a blogger, I don't know if we all know Cyprian Nyakundi. Yeah, Nyakundi is a favorite of most of us because he's unafraid in the way he expresses himself. Yeah, sometimes he says the correct thing. Sometimes people come at him for, I'm suing you because this is libelous. This is not correct information about my organization or about my person. So much as he gives us information, yeah, it is also upon him to suffer the consequences. And it has been numerous times that we have seen him in courts because somebody is suing him for this or for that. So it is your responsibility, much as you want to share information, it is your responsibility to counter-check. Yeah, you can use words like allegedly. For instance, we have the equivalent of, do you know Edgar Obare? Those of us who are in Kenya, Edgar is known for the tea. Yeah, we like to hear people's stories. Oh, a scandal here, a scandal there. But Edgar, more and more people have told him the consequence of what he does. And you'll hear that now he uses words like allegedly this is happening. Yeah, it's just to protect himself. And I like that now he's more vigilant in terms of seeking more, like finding out whether this is legit information or if somebody is just being, malicious about sharing somebody else's information. So responsibility plays a very huge role for Kenyans who are not heavily censored when it comes to, information sharing. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any questions on that specific point?
It's a quiet audience.
Very quiet. Yes, please.
You mentioned something about censoring the information that is out there. So with all the media risks that we've been fighting for and not curtailing the media rights and all, is it ethical to really censor this information that is out there in Kenya or globally?
Censoring information that is out there.
Yes.
I think organizations or individuals like to share what they want to share. Sometimes something is not ready for public knowledge. I'll give an example. Recently I just finished reading Bad Blood. Bad Blood is about Theranos. I don't know, Steve, you may know about Theranos. Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes. It was a startup in California. And what happened is they started a technology that was to change how we, test ourselves. Like it was going to become faster. But the thing was, this technology didn't really kick off. Yeah, it didn't really kick off to a point where it was good or ready for public consumption. When John picked it up, John is a journalist. I can't really mention, I rather pronounce well his surname, Kariru, or for lack of better pronunciation skills on that. Elizabeth and Theranos were not ready to share that information. So every time John reached out, they were like, we can't speak about this right now. So I don't want to call it censorship. And once we get word about something we can share so that the public knows, or something we can share because we want to gain clout, we are usually very excited as journalists, we are usually very excited as youth to share this information. But on the other side, the organization or this person is considering, how is this information going to hurt me? How is it going to hurt my reputation and that of my organization? So while we call it censorship, we have to look at it from the point of view of this person whose information we are sharing. Is it true? Yeah, for one. Is it good for their reputation? Is it necessary? Let's look at it from that point. So I feel like censorship or lack of people telling you no comment on this is because they're trying to protect their reputation and just tell you things that you need to hear. It doesn't need to be, very detailed to a point where it hurts them or hurts their business or hurts their reputation. I don't really want to call it censorship, but censorship is sometimes very necessary, yeah, for purposes of controlling how masses react or respond to a particular situation. If the rumored cases, for instance, of coronavirus in Kenya were if the government left us to go haywire about having this information out there, can you imagine the harm that would have been done by now? Yeah, but they took it upon themselves to be the ones to release information about this. They said it's a suspected case. And you'd realize that most of this information, they don't get back to us about whether it was a confirmed case or whether it wasn't a confirmed case. It's not because they don't want to inform us. It's because they're also trying to manage, we are scared. No one wants to die. And if the government already told you, if coronavirus was to hit Kenya, we only have 11 beds. How many millions are we? So it's for purposes of just, let's manage this situation so that it doesn't get to a point where we can't take it back.
Any other question? I'd like to motivate you more to ask many questions because it's for your own, it's for our benefits that we have these three very distinguished speakers here. So if you have, even if you feel like it's not very substantial, just ask the question. Yes, thank you, Rachel. Now I'd like to go to Nelson. Could you please just have a brief introduction of your organization, you and the rest?
Is it possible for me to have the VJ? The HDMI cable? Just to plug it in. This is the youth cafe. This used to not have taken any cafe. So I just wanted to kind of to showcase a little bit of the work that you're doing in the projector. So in the introduction you mentioned about Web for All. Yes, so I play two roles. My background is in ICT. I'm a network engineer by training, and I have spent a lot of time working in ICT and tech. So right now I have two foot, one in the private sector and one in the NGO. I don't want to use sector. I mean in NGO and activism. So I work with Web for All, the company that you mentioned, the ICT company. But I'm also the director of DeFi Head now. So DeFi Head now works on kind of creating mechanism for trust between stakeholders, and we do that through mitigating hate speech and also hate speech and incitement to violence. We also do fact checking. And I kind of want to talk more about the DeFi Head now work because it's more relevant here. And I also want to introduce my colleague Eleanor. Yeah, she's our communications associate, communication specialist actually, sorry. And she manages our fact-checking programs and also the digital media reports, some of the things I'll be showing here in South Sudan and in Cameroon. We're present in Kenya, in Cameroon, South Sudan and Ethiopia. So I just want to give a highlight of, I'll talk very broadly, I want to talk very grandiose and then I'll zoom in. So some of the things that I think Steve alluded to and also you've been talking about, I have a little bit of a vintage of seeing that through our various programs because we run programs in Cameroon, which is a country that, for lack of a better word, has been we call it soft or hard dictatorship for a long time. So it's a very different environment. We also run a program in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is undergoing a transition, but it's still issues. You're talking about internet shutdown. I was in a place called Benishangul 2 weeks ago. So do you see the pictures there? So I was doing training with this group of youth on digital media and kind of understanding hate speech and all. And the most interesting thing about this part of Ethiopia, the internet has been shut down there. So even these photos that I took, I had to share with them through Bluetooth. The internet has been shut down for the last 3 months in this region called Benishangul because the government, there is a lot of ethnic tension and the government just decided the best way to do that is to shut it down. We have seen that also in Cameroon. It happened 2 years ago. They shut the internet for like 3 months, close to 3 months. 3 or 2 months, I don't have that. We also work in South Sudan. We also see incidents there of like a very repressive media regime. Kenya is a bit different. There's much freedom of expression there. in the media ecosystem is also very developed. So there is already, like, governments are already very paranoid. And then, like, it comes all this digital media wave where the message is not controlled now. Governments are now even more scared. Sometimes justifiably, more often than not justifiably. So you find, even like in the idea of, like, I think Steve, you work in the media, like this idea of breaking news. In the past, it used to be like a journalist goes and then sets his camera and then, like, he's on breaking the news to the television. But now it is not. It's the nearest person to the news to the phone. That by the time the major news outlets are breaking the news, someone has already broken the news. I mean, do you remember the Miguna case when he wanted to come from Amsterdam and what? Like, the information was like, people are sharing WhatsApp messages. Someone's like, hey, I saw Miguna at the airport. He's at that corner. Like, by the time the standards and all these media houses are trying to get. So now what's happening now, you find the media houses now, they reach to your DM, they're like, hey, we saw you took this video of the hurricane or the accident or what. They do a bit of verification and then, like, can we use it? So there is a shift of power, and also there is a shift of how information is being shared. And then, like, into this mix comes this idea of virality. It's like everyone wants to go viral, and everyone wants to gain some social credit by sharing stuff. And that one thing that we have noticed, and that I've noticed, that, like, things that are factual and things that are factual and kind of like very methodical and what, people are like, we don't want that. Where's the juice? Why is it not spiced up? So you find that there is a tendency, especially with young people now, we want to share the most outrageous things. Like, people who are in the middle are not, and when you're talking about polarization, is that, like, people in the middle are not being listened to. Information that is just direct and what. So we want polarization in every debate, and that really increases. Now you find people, and you can see this here on social media in Kenya. You can look about influencers. I can say this without fear of contradiction. You find that a lot of the influencers now, like, the less clothes you have, the more likes you get, and people really take it to the edge. And then you also find with sharing the information that people are sharing, people say very outrageous stuff, very insensitive things that if you sit with them in the room, they will not say it to you. Like, social media just changed how people behave. Like, most of these people you see online, if you really follow stuff online, you might think that human beings are nasty, and if you meet them on the street, they will just choke you. But it is not true. But then you have factors like anonymity, the fact that you can share information without necessarily. I think Twitter allows that more than Facebook. On Twitter, you can be anonymous. And then, like, no one can trace things back to you. So we have all these problems, and then at the end of it, and then you have now this idea of, like, misinformation, disinformation, and incitement to violence. And, like, the spectrum there is very huge. So you have people who do it, and I usually say it's a spectrum of intentions. Like, how intentional is someone in spreading fake news or misinformation? Some people might do it for the likes, some people might do it for what? But, like, increasingly we see, like, intentional manipulation of media and hijacking of public space for discussions. And in Kenya, this happens a lot. I think Kenyans should know about this probably more than other places. You find at times something is being pushed to your end. You find people are discussing, like, for example, someone says, I want to trend, or I want this topic to trend. You have to get about maybe 15 influencers to tweet about this, probably half of the day. Then all of a sudden you find that the topic is now trending number one. You find this sometime back. Have you realized this Maraga is? There are so many trends against the judiciary. There are so many trends against what? So now, if you look at the digital media space, if that's a public space of discussions, though it is open, but people can hijack it. If you have enough money to hire enough influencers to pump as much junk as possible, you can hijack that. And that also happens even in the US and other places. You find people trying to hijack the public space. So, like, these are all the vices. Let me just come down. I said I will talk grandiose and then I will zoom in. So, like, for example, today morning, my team received, so we woke up in the morning, so there is a rebel group in South Sudan that shared a video in which they're demeaning a certain tribe as a different tribe. So this comes to my desk because it's all over social media, and we have an element. I have to write a statement. I think it was yesterday. So we have to write a statement condemning that. It's like very tricky. We wrote the statement in a way that, like for example, there's a video of people singing tribal songs, inciting tribal songs. A lot of people are saying this is this tribal group, but we cannot say that. Like, otherwise, if we say that this is whatever, the burden of proof will be on us. If this rebel group tomorrow morning say it is not us, I have to provide a very definitive fact that says this is them, it was taken at this time in this place. So we found ourselves in a very difficult situation. We have to condemn this statement, but we also have to ensure that we don't pin it on someone, we don't attribute it to someone without a very definitive factual evidence and stuff like that. So these are just few of the challenges that we face in this ecosystem. Let me just go through some things that we do. So these are we call them social media health reports. So we publish this every once in a while on fake news, misinformation. This one is talking about ethnic violence. So we monitor what is happening and then we publish on that. This is on cyberbullying. So what is cyberbullying? How is it affecting stuff like that? Let me just talk a little bit about the youth. So one of the ways in which we kind of work with our programs in South Sudan and in Ethiopia and this, we work with the youth. So we have 2 fellowship programs. Ellen is actually a beneficiary of one. So this one fellowship program, we call it Connecting the Dots. It's in South Sudan and here. So we work with young people to help us research and also do information gathering and stuff like that. We have another one, it's called Fact Smarter. It's in Cameroon. These are the fellows in Cameroon. So we have about 8 people in Cameroon. So what they do, they have a Telegram group, and that's the idea of decentralizing, kind of democratizing fact checking. So we have people from about 8 regions, but 5 regions in Cameroon. So they have one Telegram group. Someone might say, hey, there is a shooting happening in Kakamega. So the person who is in Kakamega will say, hey, let me check with my contacts here and stuff like that and share it back to the Telegram group, and then people can be able to do that. This is a very small group. Ethiopians actually mastered this. In Ethiopia, there's a Telegram group that has, let's wait for it, the Telegram channel that has over 500,000 members.
Wow.
Yes, 500,000 plus. That's one Telegram group. And I have not seen I've not seen such innovation in kind of democratizing and decentralizing content creation. So what happened, these 500 plus members, mostly university students. Ethiopia has several regions. So what happens, someone says there is a shooting that is happening, blah, blah, blah. Because there are 500,000, definitely there is someone who is if not 1 kilometer away, 500 meters or something away from that. So the person what does, they're like, hey, there is this and this happening. We had this news. So the person, because with Telegram you can also do geotagging, so you will know whether the person is close to that. So the person takes a picture and says, no, this is not happening and stuff like that. It's called Tikva. So with this group, they're able to fact check and verify and rank information all over the country. It has 500,000 members. Some of us complain about wedding groups that has 20 members. Can you imagine if you have 500,000 members? 500,000 members. If you are in that group, you don't check it one day, if you come, you see the notifications, it's probably a few thousand messages that has been sent. But they use the bots, so they use bots to rank some of this information. And I don't know a lot about the group, so I can't speak so much, but I've seen it working. I know that works. So these are a few of the initiatives that people are working on. But the challenge is there. It's very huge, especially for the youth. I don't want to scare you, but I think it will reach a time where probably 70% of what your kids are going to hear is not from you. Anything from how to wear socks, how to make their hair, what is the value of religion, what do they think about sexuality, what your kids perceive about political views and what. We're literally losing the information junk that we're getting right now. It's only going to get worse. It's going to get so worse. And people are lazy. People are so lazy. I've seen this all over. I've seen this. People are so lazy. I mean, none of us can do calculations anymore. Like, even if it's the simplest one. Even if it's the simplest one with your Uber driver, about few things you have to use your phone. So our dependence on information from these gadgets and information that comes from outside, it's only going to get worse. So then how do you control all this? How do you control all this? And you see online, maybe this I can conclude with, some people say like, hey, there are people who, the anti-vax group, people who don't believe in vaccine, people who believe that the earth is flat. They're like, how can people believe that the earth is flat? Yes, they can, because it's online. And you might think like, this is ridiculous. Just go to YouTube and say like, is the earth flat?
Oh, yeah.
You'll find a video with 3 million views. And in fact, what happens is that any view, just any view that you have, how radical it is, you'll find a very polished video that supports that view. Seriously. Even like in Nigeria right now, they're saying that people say that people in Nigeria have a conspiracy theory that says that the president is actually a clone. That that Buhari, when he went somewhere, the actual president died. And then this president is a clone or a replacement. You might think like, this is ridiculous. But you go online, you find people like putting different photos and say like, look at the nose. And then you might think that, this is what? But then if you spend half a day looking at those tweets, you might not believe it, but then you're like, there's a point. so this idea of echo chambers and stuff like that, I think, and that what scares me more than the other things. Is that this idea that like people, whatever view, whatever version of reality that you have, you will get something to support it. I think 2 years ago, we had a game here in Kenya. It's called Blue Whale or something. Do you recall that? Yeah. So I think this game has several challenges that someone has to go through. And then the ultimate challenge in terms of gaming, those who do gaming, like you go to this. So the ultimate challenge in the game actually asks you to commit suicide, or to. And I think there were cases here in Kenya. Is that true? Yeah, there was. I don't know how many. 1 or 2.
No, 2 kids.
2 kids. Yeah. So I think the game kind of direct the kids after that. Then the ultimate challenge, like for you to hit this is sad and also like I don't know, like the ultimate thing. So like the ultimate thing, if you play gaming, so the ultimate thing in the game is for you to give your life in a physical thing, not in the thing. And then like there are 2 kids who committed suicide because of that. And then like this thing happens, people like. Yeah, and that scares me. I don't know. This is a very pessimistic message to end my remarks with, but that also should kind of motivate more discussions along this. And in fact, we should double our resources. One of our biggest challenges in DeFi Head right now, we don't do humanitarian relief. Most of the global humanitarian funding or conflict prevention funding is usually structured around the main things like, are you doing peace building? Are you distributing food? Are you doing that? The idea of information literacy is not viewed as something that is at least fundable enough. So we struggle a lot to explain our work to donors. And I think even with governments, you find governments are not dedicating as much time on information literacy and digital literacy. And that, like right now in South Sudan, I think we're the only organization, I think Eleanor had this, we're the only organization that's doing this. So you find in the morning we're bombarded with videos of rebel groups, misinformation from all sides, but that can't scale. There is a push, but it's not enough.
Thank you very much, Nelson. That was very informative. Any question from the audience? Yes, please.
So my question is, sometimes, well, let me use an example. I may want to start an organization here because maybe I'm a gender activist. I want to start an organization, but the organization cannot be started because it relies on certain information. For example, a modern gender-based a modern database on gender-based violence. So currently there is no modern, a more updated database on gender-based violence, and this organization solely relies on the database for it to to start, and so I'm left to rely on the media that changes at times, it may speak of lies, and so I'm left with the media to rely on it instead of the database that I don't know should be released by who or who comes up with all those things. So would you address that?
Yes. Research. If I just talk about the example of, say, gender-based violence against children, or rather violence against children. Maybe children suffer violence, and we know that currently in Kenya it's not allowed. What happens is sometimes there is so much research done. There is people doing theses in colleges. There's organizations doing research. But what happens is there is a disconnect between our findings and disseminating them. So you'll find that there is such a host of information, but the media doesn't have access to them because either they're not looking for it, and we also have to put in the fact that media only wants to share information that is either sensational or will bring them some sort of clout or business. It's just how things work, unfortunately, in Kenya, for instance. But information is there. I will tell you for free, information is there. The only thing you may need to do is research more. Stop relying mostly on, if it's not on Google Books or these few research sites that I do, then this information doesn't exist. You'll go to the University of Nairobi Library, for instance, or any university, even the closest here, Daystar, and just ask to access the library. You'll be surprised at how much research we have done. And I think this is another limiting factor for most of us. We choose not to start things or progress because the sole information source we want or we know we can access is the media. So I'll go on Google, and I'm a culprit. I'll go on Google and look for things on natural hair experts in Kenya. And then I'll find two, and the information will be scanty. And then I'll tell myself, this is not widely researched. Yeah, but I had the option of going to on Instagram. Yeah, I had the option of going to. So it's either you search using keywords or you move from just using the internet to, can I check for physical sources in libraries? Kenya National Library, for instance. You'll be shocked at how much information we have. So I'd just encourage that instead of waiting on the media to talk about the current rate of gender-based violence, say in Kibra, is at 20%, down from 80%. You'll be surprised at how much physical information in terms of books, research findings we have in these libraries. So maybe choose to explore that avenue as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, so I have a question on cyberbullying. I'm not sure if it's already covered, but yes, I want to know the responsibilities of media on cyberbullying, especially when it involves massive people who are maybe miles away from the victim. So how is that addressed? Or what is the responsibility of social network?
I think I'll say something probably. That's a bit interesting. I don't have kids, so my opinions on that really might not come very passionately at times because these are the majority of the cases that happen. All social media platforms have at least, I think apart from Telegram, all of them have a rule against cyberbullying, and you can report it. The problem with that is the burden is on the victim, like the burden of report. Like social media companies handle a case based on the reporting. Like is it a proactive or what are the two things? It's not a proactive approach. So the social media accounts waits for you to report. So if you don't report, and other people do not report it, they will not tackle it. And that's, I think that is the biggest problem. So you find that the cases of reporting it is not that prevalent. And then And then like at times what happens is that some of these things, and that it's a bit shifty. Because, for example, right now, like you see this in Kenya, someone does something, and that's like, we have a lot of kind of online mob justice thing, which something can easily move from a cause that people are following into cyberbullying, very simple. Someone does something, I don't know, they litter, or you see a video of someone mistreating a waiter. Then all of a sudden you find that overnight, whatever, 100,000 people are now on this account. Now telling them, it started with the beginning, stop that was not good and what, but it's immediately shifts. You find this mob, other people are telling you that, I'll kill you, you don't look like even you deserve what, and stuff like that. So we have a lot of wokeness culture in youth. You think you want to put one or two tweets to support a cause, but then all of a sudden you find that you're directing this loads and loads of hate and kind of degrading language towards one person. And that happens a lot. And that's even, I'm more afraid of that. Because it could just be a video of me taken out of context. Me and my friend, we're playing wrestling. We're not doing anything and what. All of a sudden you find that this mob online takes the meaning out of this, goes into my personal account. I'm getting all kind of messages directed to me. And that's a bit risky, but like, there are organizations working on that. I don't know the name yet. I know there is one organization, and the Kenyan police has a unit that's dedicated to child protection. I will probably give the details later, but the Kenyan police has a unit dedicated to child protection, and then they work with an organization here in the country that focuses that. So I'm like deviating more towards like children and stuff like that. I know also adults experience it, but as I said earlier on, the burden is on you. If you don't have the information to report it just goes unheard of. I don't know, probably.
I feel like he says, the burden is on you, the person who is being cyberbullied, which is unfortunate. But definitely the media has a role to play here. A few months ago, is it a month or two ago, there is the story, the lady that runs Buyer Beware. Did you see she was arrested? And then 2 days after she was arrested, there was a video out. Someone did a very elaborate video about cyberbullying. It's on YouTube. I don't remember its name, but we have seen people committing suicide. At least 3 people who are being recorded, or who are the sources for this particular video, took their lives because of cyberbullying. So the media, and I like what this person did, he started a very important conversation. That much as we are out to troll, it may be just trolling to us. But what happens if it's my friend or if it's my sister? Is that when I'll take it seriously? So I like that these conversations began, and they may be slow but sure, of can you see the effects of what you're doing? Bullying this person who may have been, like he says, this video was taken out of context. He didn't mean it, or she didn't mean it. Or it was just, I was in my space, somebody infringed into my privacy, took my phone, stole my phone, and then shared this video, and now here we are. So the media definitely has a role. I just pray that they choose to know how powerful they are in this process, which is we can start conversations around cyberbullying and choose to show quarterly, monthly, daily about effects of this. You see, that slowly but surely begins to transform the minds of people who are cyberbullies, either in an intended manner or if it's unintended. So our role, it's our responsibility also, like we said, we already spoke largely about responsibility. How can we influence the media to speak about these things? And we see that the media now, the traditional media, picks a lot of information from social media now to share on traditional media. So if we choose now, for instance, as Youth Cafe, can we get a few youth to just speak about how cyberbullying is affecting us, either directly or indirectly, and then see whether they can pick it. It's a conversation that can get to them, and before we know it, it's transforming the world over. So we have a role to play as individuals, and the media has a role to also play in transforming this particular discourse on cyberbullying? Yes.
I just wanted to say something about influencers. I don't know, like probably some of you here might be influencers. So like if you're an influencer, which is it's a vague term that means you're a popular person who shares views about things that many people care about. That's the definition. So if you do that, you have to count the cost of that, because if you're sharing things about your hair every morning to people, to a lot of thousands and millions of people online, you already, like, if your personal life is the commodity or the substance that attract your followers to follow you, and what, there is a threshold of openness that you have put yourself into, and you have to be able to deal with that. And that's why, like, it's very important. Like, if you want to become an influencer or something like that, you have to be like two ways. You either have to really don't take the comments too seriously, or you have to develop a very thick skin. Otherwise, if you have a video that's being viewed by 10,000 people, you have already opened yourself up to something that you have to be able to deal with somehow. I just wanted to say that. And then the second thing I wanted to say about the kind of the woke culture, the stuff that we do online, there are a lot of things that we do in the name of activism, which actually doesn't cost anything for us. Like people, you just, for example, you say racism is bad. Stop it right now. You share a hashtag. Of course, you can say I've done something to stop, but there is a lot of the times that we do actions online that does not translate into a very substantive things that we do. So that's why we encourage young people, if you really want to engage with causes, it doesn't have to do the traditional activism of following with legislators, going on the streets, reading, intensely researching about topics, as opposed to just quickly sharing things online without any substance, or at times you also risk hurting other people just in the name of furthering a cause. Yeah.
Any comments from Steve?
I would look at this from a slightly different angle, but to go with what Nelson said about your own identity. When I heard that, I thought, well, what about a young person who has given their identity so much, their identity is invested in their social media followers and their social media use, that would cause them to commit suicide based on something that happened on social media. Mm-hmm. And that's the question that I think should be answered. And it's education, but we would probably want to give parents some tools. As a parent of 2 and a grandparent of 4, we would probably want to give parents some tools and say, here's what you need to say to your child, and here's how you should control their social media use, because just like you control any other part of their life when they're a child and they're not yet an adult, how do you do that so that they're not affected to the extent of they're actually going to take some drastic action just based on what's out there on their social media? Why is their identity so closely tied to that they would actually take that action? That's what I would wonder.
Thank you very much.
I think you asked a question. Is that a question? I think maybe the audience, why is it so? A lot of you are young people and have your identity.
Yeah, why do you put social media as the number one thing in your lives? Why do you put your whole identity into the numbers of followers you have, into the comments that you get on Instagram, Twitter, whichever social media outlet you use? Is there anyone who would like to maybe respond to that question from Steve? Why is social media so important to you?
Maybe how many of you can stay 1 week without social media?
1 hour.
1 hour.
Maybe 1 hour?
I think most of us don't even know the answer to that. It's just become the norm that we don't even question it. It's just how it is, and we just move along with the crowd, going with the flow, normalizing what shouldn't be normal in the first place. So, can anyone answer that? Do we know why? I don't.
I think I kind of know why. It's because social media gives a sense of community. And sometimes when you have a false community, it's almost like they're your friends. So but that's why they're called friends on Facebook, right? Because they're supposed to be your friends. Then they're like close friends. You know that segment? They're friends and then they're close friends. And then they come in and they become your close friends. And on Instagram, they are called your followers. So assuming that they're following you. But really, I think it's just all false. But it takes time to realize that they're really not your friends. They're really not your close friends. They're really not your followers. It's just the falseness towards it that makes you feel like if a friend tells you that what you are doing is wrong, it's stupid, you shouldn't have done that, you'll be hurt. And that's why when someone tells you and they were your friends on Facebook or they were your followers, then you feel like it's something big. But if you just take it like they're strangers, they don't know me, I don't know them. If someone from nowhere just comes and tells you that, you really wouldn't care. But social media has created a sense of false friendship and false family that makes you feel like you're obligated to impress them.
Yeah, just all on that, I think there's always human needs, and social media is fulfilling a certain need in the hierarchy of needs, which is the need of significance, the need to belong to a community. And because of that, there's also the need of information, just to understand what's going on around you. It has infused in the culture of gossiping in African culture, where in the evening you want to sit around your grandmother to hear stories. So you get that kind of stories from social media, but then you end up getting addicted to the memes and everything else that is around that.
Yes, I have a different opinion on what they say, because just like we have followers and friends on social media, well, we all do know that nowadays social media is so interesting to a point of connecting people. We have people that meet on Facebook and they become couples and they live happily.
Way to go.
It's happening. Yeah, so there's that family. I don't think maybe the cyberbullying, the bad influencers on social media. There are people with good intentions, especially those that are giving information. If I stay for 2 days without getting on social media, I'll miss a lot. I'll miss so much information. So I think social media is part of our today's life. So
that happened really quickly too, didn't it? Yeah. Considering how long it's been available. Yeah. Smartphones only since 2008, and some of the social media much later than that.
So you're all saying there is no way of disassociating yourself from the persona that you have created on social media?
I think I can say, like, there's a time I went to Juba and I wanted to do a potluck dinner, and I asked my followers, show you like how these followers so I asked my followers, about 30 of them signed up, one showed up. So I sat with him, we just ordered some meat and we were discussing. I thought my followers would do the hard work and show up for my dinner. About 30 or 40 signed up. I was like, wow, one showed up. so I don't know, and I did not ask them for money. I don't know if I asked them for money, maybe no one will show up.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this topic? Okay, so I have a question for, sorry, give me a moment as I get to the question. I noted this down. For Nelson, and the question is, for those, you spoke about some sort of network that is used in Cameroon and in Ethiopia, but for people, like we say common humanity, like us, sorry, that means just a commoner, what tools can we use, be it online or offline, to verify information, as much as Steve has spoke about trusted media outlets and everything, but are there any other tools that could be used for common people to verify information?
Yeah, I don't want to answer that, but I want to say, like, given my experience, is that training people and what is that, like, really it's a question of intentionality, intention, habits, and cost. Cost, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about, like, will you spend like 2 seconds or 3 seconds of your time to verify? That's the biggest problem that I find with people. It's the changing of habit and the cost. Like people are very lazy. Even the cost of moving from one news site to another news site to verify one item, it just seems like eternity. People are like, nope, I don't have time for that. So, like, for example, we have Google Reverse Image, where you can take an image and search it, and it will tell you where this image appeared before. I've never found a common, like, I've taught it in so many places, apart from the bloggers and what, I've never found what so-called commoner, a normal person who came to me and told me, like, I used reverse image today, and I found out that this image is false, it appeared in a different place. So, I think there are so many tools. Look at Google Reverse Image, check, usually verify the URL of the website, if it is the right URL. Check the content of the website, the date, the context of the news items. There are so many things that one can do, but it is just like hygiene. I mean, when you talk about hygiene, if you only brush your teeth and you don't wash your hands, that is not like hygiene by itself. It's so many small things that you do together what constitute a healthy life. So some people say, like, I want to wash my hands, I want to do this, I want to, like, there's so many items, like right now with the people are so much about washing hands because of this. I want to greet people, I don't want to shake hands. So when you look at your life, your healthy life, it's a combination of so many things. Eating healthy foods, running, doing stuff like that. A healthy information society is also a combination of so many things. I know people who would say, I want to verify sources and what, but then once it comes from your family members, you don't verify. You're like, it's like my mom told me, that's it, or my friend. So that means you have an area where you are not covering. So the advice that if someone wants to go read from here, look at kind of like information verification and this, look at it like hygiene. So, like, what are the simple stuff that you can do to ensure that you insulate yourself from this toxicity, and so when you do it long enough, you can kind of then change your habit. One of the things that you can do, and I know a lot of people are doing it, if someone share that thing like forwarded as received on a group, you immediately ask them, what is the source? Yeah, you can do that. It might sound a bit unpolite to say, especially if the person is your pastor or someone who is seemingly reputable in a society, but that's a very good thing to ask. Hey, what is the source of this? So, like, if we change our habits slightly towards that, I think we are most likely to have a healthy ecosystem.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, now, so that is it from me, but I'd like to invite our panelists to say a closing remark or, anything. Let's start with the stage.
I think the 2 points that I would like to make sure that I leave are to be a responsible citizen, to check the sources of the information that you have, and certainly before you ever share it, that you know that it is the truth, because if you don't, you are contributing to whatever damage happens because of that. And the other one is there are things that we've heard here in different ways from the other 2 presenters, and that is context. Everything has to be taken in context of cultural, of all different aspects of what could go into context, because otherwise it's not the truth. Because this person's truth and that person's truth are 2 different things based on their culture. So if this person is the one that posted it, you can't go by this person's set of values in order to determine whether it's true or not.
Yeah, I think for me, I think like I'll just add people to kind of put the cost, like try to really, for you to change your habits and to get around it. You know, someone said it will reach a time where privacy will become like kind of a delicacy of the rich. Like for you to have privacy, you have to really like it will be a very rare commodity that only the rich will have it. And I even say that's untrue because Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, his freaking phone was hacked. Like this is the richest person in the planet, but he could not even keep his messages private. So I think like all of us need to look at privacy, especially in the very valuable kind of commodity that we can. So even if you're giving part of your information, you should do that based on your own consent. And that is a very needed thing. I see people that like this app wants to access your house address, your name, your what. They're like, okay, tick. Okay, next. Okay, well, someone says that, yeah, this app wants to have access to your picture. Okay, no problem. So all of us, with time, you find that like your habits changes around us. So let's put privacy and kind of let's share information with a lot of consciousness. I don't want to repeat other points that people have said. And then the other thing that I'd say like engage in a meaningful conversations, yeah. Because even this gathering here is kind of we want to engage in a meaningful conversation. That's, I can say like against the mainstream views. So try to not only be in one subculture, but try to engage in meaningful conversations that challenge your views. Because it's getting harder and harder for us to be able to change our minds. So try to engage with different communities.
Mine is to just thank the Youth Cafe for one, organizing a workshop of this kind. And what I'd want to urge you all to do is you are empowered, not so that you sit with that information, but think of the person who doesn't have the advantage of knowing what media literacy is. It may be someone in a city as big as Nairobi. So your role then, consider it empowering this other person, yeah? You have gotten information, it could be from this forum, it could be from somewhere else, but the information you get that empowers you to know that I need to verify information, for instance, how can I then push it forward so that the next person is also equally empowered? So that's what I'd love to urge us to all do today. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Could we just appreciate our... Yes, so this is the end of the forum. I think Martin, everyone knows Martin, he introduced himself earlier. If you can get your contacts just in case you are having follow-up questions, and we'll see to respond to those. So yes, from me and from the Youth Cafe, thank you very much for attending, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.